which is now protected by fashion, right? The police can't go in. You are asking for trouble. You know, you're from Rio de Janeiro. You're going to ask to maybe get into the microwave. These guys are awesome. The guy who was once president, right? When I'm president, deforestation will be zero. I hired an advisor of mine. Leave it to me.
Do a good imitation.
By the way, let me read the topic here. Since you're a good imitation, let me do it in practice. Well, I'm reading your menu here. The menu. Oh, no, oh, wait. So I asked, look, take that guy's first 3 years, see the deforestation, and see my first 3 years. His was a little higher. It was twice as much as deforested. In my 3 fewer years. So the word, right? It's worth accepting anything. You remember when you said that, right? I was with Jamie Lerner in the countryside in France, and I said that there are 25 million street children in Brazil. The guy throws out numbers. Throws numbers. So let's get to the debate. Okay? Okay?
Would you go to a debate now?
I will, no problem. In fact, there was a misunderstanding with Globo just now. There was. And I'm going to the debate. Not a debate, it's an interview. I'm not going to subject myself there for the guy to ask me nonsense. Wanting to play along with me. Let's discuss Brazil's issues. 1.
What do you think is nonsense?
Oh, they're going to want to get something about health, I don't know what. From the plan, I don't know what, so as not to beware. Because it's not in the public's interest. The population has to... It is in their interest. What have I done over the course of 3 years? I never wanted to show the truth. Never show the truth. And I have to show the truth. I want to talk. Pandemic, vaccine, PICS, faithful, national driver's license, highways, railways, Niobe, graphene, the Amazon. What is the project?
About Niobe and graphene, man? I never heard about them again.
I started talking in 2016.
Yes.
Graphene was... It appeared in the world in 2004. When I took over the presence, I met with the Russian physicist who discovered graphene. What's the point? Niobe and graphene are more than steel wool, much more than 1,001 uses. You can see graphene. Now, a gram of graphene covers a football field. A strand of graphene lifts an elephant. Look at the savings in elevators. That steel cable goes up and down all the time there, too. Then you go to niobium. It's the same thing. Here at the cyclotron in Campinas, we already have the niobium battery, which only we have. 98% of niobium is here, in Brazil. Unfortunately, under the Temer government, they sold the niobium mine in Catalão, Goiás, to the Chinese. Araxa, I did my part to ensure it wasn't sold. Otherwise, we would know who would buy it there. We can't hand over something that only we have to another country. This is strategic. So, what happens? Campinas has already made the niobium battery. It is already physically there. Other places in Brazil are looking for the niobium graphene battery. What is the difference between it and your car battery that is there? If you give your battery a quick charge, it explodes. Overheating, it explodes. It has to be recharged for a few hours. That's not it. It accepts quick charges. So in 10 minutes, you can recharge your battery in your electric-powered car with electricity. You stopped at the gas station, had a coffee, went to the bathroom, came back. A range of another 400 kilometers. Only we have that. Elon Musk was in Brazil these days.
What did he come here to do? I don't know.
He didn't come here to catch butterflies. Oh, so you can't say anything. He didn't come to hunt butterflies. I talked to him there. I was with Faria. Here. He's a guy who rarely leaves his country, even because of his contract. He rarely talks to the head of state, and he's interested in Brazil. Nobody comes to hang out. It's not about the expense. For him, a trip on his private plane to here is nothing. It's nothing. He came to make friends, make contact, probe something. It's clear that he came here to do that. And he's the guy with the electric car. With the super niobium and graphene battery, we have a so-called OPEC out there. OPEC will cease to exist. Only we in Brazil have that. Only we can have this niobium and graphene battery. We are finalizing it now, together with Minister Juca. It started back with sales. We built it. We started building it with foreign capital, because we don't have the capital for it, offshore wind farms. That is, the towers with wind vanes in the sea. We can.
Only in the northeast?
Yes, only in the northeast. The production capacity could be equivalent to 50 Itaipas, where you will get the so-called green hydrogen.
Today in the northeast, we have one.
synthetic hydrogen park, right? Yes, yes. For example, we doubled our solar energy from last year to now. In the last year,
Yes.
in part, I did my part. We eliminated the import tax on photovoltaic panels, for example. As we are working with Georgia Safe, which is the guy from Santa Catarina, who was the Secretary of Fisheries, eliminated the taxes on fish feed. You can think about it. Look, Lake Itaipu will give us, we just need to reach an agreement with Paraguay, which is also a binational lake, fish farming in that region, so that we can increase fish production in Brazil by 40%. And when it starts in other places, PHH, for example, look at the little mouse.
Damn. Like 40% in the whole of Brazil.
Yes, only Lake Itaipu. We have the capacity to continue to increase production, the volume of fish in Brazil, by 40%. Don't you?
Damn interesting.
There was a state law, my God, a state law in Rio Grande do Sul that did not allow, for example, trawling there on the coast of Rio Grande do Sul, and by extension, affected Santa Catarina and São Paulo. And it was stuck in the Supreme Court. Jorge Sayy went there, talked to the minister, who was Casio by coincidence, and Casio declared the law there unconstitutional, which has to be. I'm the one who legislated the most. Me and the National Congress, not the Legislative Assembly, and the governor of Rio Grande do Sul. And now people control shrimp off the coast of Rio Grande do Sul, Santa Catarina, and Paraná. What did the shrimp do when they weren't allowed to fish? They migrated to Argentina, people fished there and sold them here. So this issue of vision is due to the freedom that I gave to the ministers and the freedom that the ministers gave to their secretaries to go after, to look for alternatives. Why didn't Brazil's economy sink in 2020 and 2021? In 2014, 2015, we lost 3 million jobs that we hadn't signed. What was the pandemic? It was corruption. 2020 and 2021, terrible years. The pandemic created almost 3 million jobs in Brazil. A positive balance. A positive balance. Where does this come from? It comes from the initiative, the capacity, Paulo Guedes' team, the ministries in general.
Can you tell me where most of these jobs were created?
No, it's spread out. It's spread out. Now, all over Brazil. You take Santa Catarina. It's a state that has several signs there. Needed. We have a labor problem. People who are not qualified. Our education, right? The education is bad.
That's right, President. It's perennial in Brazil like that. There's no education policy.
It's not that there isn't. Education is the transatlantic. You can't. Just like the barracks, right? Front to rear. Isn't that right?
Did you spend a lot of time in the barracks?
Wow. Wow. I took the skydiving course, man.
You sat down and lifted a monster too.
Even blood on your hands. But he was in uniform. He wasn't naked. So you were in uniform. Let's be clear.
That's what I meant.
Because in my year, the guys were spinning like champions. I do a little backsliding. I'm unsettling. Okay. I'm 3A, you know, I'm 3A.
Yeah, I know.
That's okay.
What were we talking about? I was talking about...
I forgot to.
Education.
Education. Look, we spent 2 years practically without schools being closed in Brazil. It was a huge loss. The current minister...
It also highlighted an issue that, so we had schools closed and students at home couldn't study due to a lack of access equipment.
No, but it's not due to a lack of access. If you made an app, a small part of them would study.
But people don't even have tablets or cell phones to watch.
What did we do? We now have an app that goes to schools. You test the kids and get the most diverse kids in the grade and put them in a group. These people are lacking in this part of the subject. And the teacher can use another app, find a way to make these kids recover those 2 lost years. I always said that we couldn't close schools. I got beaten up like a mangy dog at the door of the butcher's shop. Because the child is asymptomatic. You don't see children hospitalized for COVID. You don't see children hospitalized for COVID.
Well, I don't really remember any children being hospitalized.
Look, here I can tell you, logically, that I have more information than you. People complained about the adult ICU. No one complained there's a shortage of children's IQs. So much so that several children's IQs were transformed into IQs for adults. Because the child is asymptomatic. You can't stop Brazil. You die from COVID, but you also die from hunger. So what? It's not misunderstanding. It's just me being beaten up. I am a president who changed the way politics is done in Brasilia. Doubt. Until a few years ago, you would hear about this party winning a ministry, this party losing another ministry, or it wasn't like that. The Banco do Brasil is with a certain party. The band is with a certain party, state-owned companies. It was like that, but it's over.
You came with a proposal for technical ministries, which was one of the things that caught my attention the most in your campaign. Afterwards, I talked to some people who said that this wouldn't last long because in government you need to make concessions. You ended up having to make concessions, right?
Second echelon, yes. In some cases, yes. But we have it nowadays. It's complicated in the ministries. We make a statement before the crime is committed. We don't want to arrest anyone. We want to avoid it. It's not that that person isn't arrested. We want to prevent corruption from taking place. And there, each ministry has people from the federal police. It is the IRS, the CGU, the TCU, who take these contracts and work on them all the time. Nothing moves forward without their help. We put an end to this, the party that existed in the ministries. A few years ago, there were 2, 3 scandals a week. What scandals were there during my government regarding corruption? Tell me what scandal. Well, with the vaccine we didn't buy. The issue with the mech which went there, 2 guys, they're doing stupid things there. Coincidentally, they were pastors. They could be priests. They could be military. They could be anyone. Then they arrested the minister there. They arrested the minister. Even with the public ministry, you count the arrest. Oh, I had 60,000 in the account. It was explained 60,000 to buy a car for a relative of his. If anything new comes up now, investigate. But they arrested him to target the president, to target the evangelicals, who were 2 pastors.
President, what is it like? What is it like for you? Because I remember that you talked a lot about the Central, about governing, like a give and take. And I'm not saying that there is a give and take. But today you are a partner of Arthur Lira.
Yes, positive.
Who is a guy recognized as being from the Central.
Oh, there's more too.
There are a bunch of people.
There's a whole bunch of people. Let's talk about the chamber, shall we? In the Senate, you have to give due proportions. There are 513 deputies. There was no chamber here. I'm not feeling sick, no. Come down, dance out. In the chamber, there are 513 deputies. For you to approve a PEC, you have to have 308 votes in favor. If you take the centrists out, which I pejoratively call the centrists, you threw 300 votes away. There are 203 left. You'll even approve a bill. So you have to have...
You understood that along the way, didn't you?
Yes. We learn things through fighting, sometimes, right? Which is easy without strings. As you can see, the press beats up Congress. Every now and then, when a congressman who came from the press shows up, the guy goes blank in there. You see, the reality is different, completely different. I was part of the Centron a long time ago. I was part of the PP, the Progressive Party. I was part of the PFL. I was part of the PTP.
But you talked a lot about not governing together with the Centron.
But the way of negotiating that I was always against, and it doesn't matter if it's at Centron or not, was always for me to get hit in the face. Look at that. 2016, if I'm not mistaken, passed 2015, 2016. Started to have, forget now the reporterism amendment, the secret estate. The deputy started to have mandatory amendments. So more or less 15 million per year for each deputy, regardless of the party. And when he presents the amendment, it is approved. And the government, I, have the obligation to execute his amendments. Build a bridge, restore health, reform any business. I have an obligation. In the past, parliamentarians only had amendments approved if they voted with the government. So it was common to create a package of evil. There were 4 months left until the elections. There was a package of evil. It came to you and said, if you vote for this package of evil here, I'll give you your 15 million. If not, a donut for you. 0 for you. And many people are led to vote yes. When it became a mandatory amendment, parliamentarians stopped being enslaved by the executive branch. Yes?
It makes sense because he is obliged to do so, right?
That changed. It was good, wasn't it? For me, it was good because I only had my amendments approved in the past. Because 90% of my amendments were for the armed forces. So the armed forces were going to negotiate. I put an amendment to the Cal Norte project. Wow, what votes am I going to get in Rio de Janeiro for the Cal Norte project? Now, a large part of my amendments are to buy health equipment, for example, the Central Army Hospital, the Marcelo Dias Naval Hospital, a hyperbaric bed. I went there. Building a multi-sports court there at the Parachute Brigade with our amendment. The same thing in an Air Force hospital, and I rarely went to other places. I've already put it in at Santa Casa de Risonde. It was more difficult to get it approved. The armed forces where I worked, they were interested in releasing me. And then I released me, bought a CT scanner there, and I put it on my pamphlet there. Look, with my money, my amendment. I could give it to the mayor. Now, what's the problem with that for the mayor? There are many honest mayors, but if the guy does something stupid, the congressman is the one who pays the bill. I remember when the ambulance scandal broke. I was in Rio. The ambulance scandal, almost 200 congressmen selling amendments, taking 15%, etc. The whole story. I called the chief of staff, who was Captain Jorge. Jorge, is there any amendment for the ambulance? He gave me a hard time. Yes. I said, damn, I'm screwed. Sometime later, in the long minutes, don't worry, Congressman, you don't have any amendments for the ambulance. Because if you had, even in good faith, even if you hadn't received the 15%, you would have been screwed. There was a congresswoman from Rio who had this problem. She arranged an amendment for the ambulance, and it really had nothing to do with it. She didn't get anything. I'm sure she didn't get anything. But she was massacred by the press. So the issue of the amendment is like that. You, the congressman, now have independence. Today, if everything that is mandatory were to be divided equally, the congresswoman would be entitled to 30 million per year. That's money for the good. That's 120 million in the term. A deputy with 120 million for the term, according to the places he puts to do necessary works, like Tarcisio, for example, said, look, let's get rid of the ferries in Brazil. So, if the deputy wants in his region to do away with ferries, build a bridge that helps to gain time to transport something, to take something. A truck costs 200 reais. It will reduce the price of the product that arrives in that region. He is re-elected. Now, he has to work for 4 years. He has to, and there you have it, man, I'm telling you. 30 million a year on average, the guy is a congressman. That's a lot of money. Well spent. 10 to 10. Now there are congressmen who put it towards things that are of no interest to me, but for you, it might.
That's right, 30 million would be, if we took the money that is used in the secret budget and redistributed it. Why isn't it like that?
No, because there I have influence, so the congressman has more power. And I want 200 million.
And you can't do anything?
No, I have nothing, zero. I just comply.
And the thing about why this year, by the end of the year, will Auxílio Brasil be available?
It changed its name, Bolsa Familia, changed its name last year in December. It became Auxílio Brasil. We went from an average of 190 to at least 400. And look, the PT voted against this in Congress. It makes it very clear. The PT voted against. Well, you know. Because for us to approve the 400 reais, we needed to pay in installments for court orders above 600,000 reais. Until it hit me that I was paying the teacher's court payments in installments. Well, the teacher doesn't have 600,000 to receive. We paid those people we owed a lot in installments. The DLT voted against it. Not just we managed to do it with the Central. Approve the installment plan, extend the debt, and approve access. Now what happened? The proposal came from Parliament, and of course I agreed that we have the power to collaborate, to help.
Are you talking about the kamikaze pay?
No, it's not kamikaze. It's not Boca de Unaspec. What do you think about the poor people at the end of the line who have seen higher inflation in food products, for example, due to the pandemic and the war? People even... The left attacks me. The press attacks me.
But didn't the left vote with you on that one?
No. The sinners back then were against it. Now they've spoken out against it, heavily. Sin and exit polls, sin in bed at home. I don't know what. It's because it seems that way, President. Go tell the most humble person what he thought.
It's not a question.
Inflation was high in food.
Yes, it's more than necessary.
Now, we acted responsibly.
Why didn't we do this last year, President?
There was no mood to do it last year. When the emergency aid started in 2020, do you know how much the emergency aid cost per month? 50 billion raise. There must be a congressman there who got carried away by running for president and is now going to support Lula, right? He demanded it, right? Lula, as president, kept the R$600. The R$600 will be kept responsibly. Why didn't the left do it back then? Didn't they increase the Bolsa Familia, which was an average of around $190? And there were people who earned $80. The mother started earning double. This emergency aid money didn't let the economy die, which was money in the municipalities' veins.
No, I have no doubt about that. My question is, couldn't we have done this before, President?
Why didn't the PT do it?
No, I don't know why the PT didn't do it.
No, but we will do it at the right time. For example, fuel, down. I fought against the fuel lobby for a year. And you can see we approved, with a lot of fighting, no one talks about it, the direct sale of ethanol, which was happening until a few months ago. The sugar mill owner produced the alcohol here. He was forced to deliver it to the distributor 400 kilometers away. Then the distributor brought the alcohol back here, 10 kilometers from the refinery. We allowed the mills to sell the fuel directly. But we put an end to tourist alcohol. It became cheaper.
It makes sense.
What happened to the ICM's price issue? At the beginning of the year, a project was approved here to change the ICMs on diesel. The diesel would drop by about 30 cents. What did the governors do? The vast majority got together via Confus and raised it by 30 cents. So they broke a law of ours, mine, which I sanctioned, and of Congress. Arthur Lyra was one of the people who basically pushed forward the proposal. This other one to put two essential items under the ICM's tax ceiling. What are essential items? Fuel, communications, transportation, and electricity. There have been cases where they charge more than 30% of the ICMs on energy. The new bill has already arrived. A huge difference.
It went up to 17%. Another thing that we couldn't do before.
We couldn't do it before because it's a fight against the governors. The governors collected a lot from that. You can see when we voted on the reduction of ICMs in the Senate, all the PT governors were against it. In other words, they complained that fuel prices were high. We have a proposal, but they voted against it. So what's in the left's interest? The worse, the better. To say the least, look, when I get there, I'll resolve the issue. It's a political war, a war for power. Fighting the fuel lobby is a business. It's terrible to be polite to you here, okay? And we did that with the support of Arthur Lyra, who is largely responsible for this. We're going to have deflation this month, right? No one has any doubt about that. I'm waiting for the official data to arrive, more than 1%.
It's interesting that you speak with this energy of Arthur Lyra, because I keep imagining Bolsonaro from 5 years ago.
But he is the master of the agenda. Yes. He puts what he thinks to the vote. He's the one in charge of the agenda.
He is, in fact.
He's the owner of the agenda. You have to go there. A must-see.
But he reaches this level with the help of your base too, right?
Yes, yes, yes. And almost no one voted against the reduction of ICMs on fuels, on essential goods. Now you have to have allies. So I discreetly helped Arthur Lyra to become president of the chamber.
Yes. Interesting because
I was in his party for 20 years. Why does everyone from the centrist party have to be labeled as something?
it's because, with all due respect, President, that was the speech.
Yes, it was. It changes. You don't believe in people who dive into the Jordan River, do you? Well...
Oh, it really does change. But it's not usually a very common characteristic for politicians, right? No, but until Zimmy said as we say, see me quiet and doing cool. Do you feel like a hostage to your base?
No, you're not. Also, because we approve of a lot of things. Tarcísio's Marco Ferroviario, for example. Tarcísio brought back the railway model in Brazil. We're finishing. No, not timidly, no. The North-South Railway, which is private, was at a standstill. Tarcísio came in, retendered it. We went after it with sales, then withdrew with sales the issue of environmental problems. And in 2 months at most, Rumo will inaugurate 4-point on km of the railway I call the backbone. The ribs, it's FICO, Tram Nordestina, it's Ferrograno, which is at a standstill in the Supreme Federal Court. We'll get it sorted out. What did Tarcísio do with the new railway milestone as well? He went to Congress, he negotiated the concessions. In other words, we already have requests for 20,000 kilometers of highways and railways to be built in Brazil by the private sector. So the big farmer from Mato Grosso, Goiás, I don't know where, he wants to build a railway. What incentive does he have? The railway is his.
Is it his?
It's his. Rail transport is one of the cheapest.
The government just allows it.
It doesn't get in the way. The government has an enormous capacity to create difficulties in order to sell ease. It really does. A little over a year ago, a group of businessmen took over the presidency, and one of them said to me, "Hey, President, for the first time I went to the SVU Civil and Union Heritage, and I wasn't harassed." It was common to be blackmailed anywhere in previous governments. Do you remember Classie's plea bargain? Everything was rigged, except the central bank. And now I've given up on the central bank. When you saw a dictatorial government give up power, I gave up the central bank. Paulo Guedes thought it was necessary that the independent bank combats and improves inflation, which is the activity of the central bank. This is one of the main ones. Roberto Campos is there. People trust him. He is a great president of the central bank, and we approve. I gave up power. We have never heard of the president giving up power. Quite the opposite.
Speaking of giving up power, President, has it ever crossed your mind not to run for re-election?
No. I understand sorry here, you hole. I started to think it was better. That my presidency is a mission from God. Wow. Nobody explains. I had a judge out last month. Some doctors told me that, just like Dr. Macedo said here also in Sao Paulo, right? It was a miracle I survived the stabbing. It's more or less like this for every 100 people who get stabbed like that. Only one survived. Was that luck? It was the doctor's expertise, with all due respect to the doctors and nurses, that I have now approved. I have sanctioned their minimum wage. For me, it was the hand of God. There's no other explanation. Until I win the election and form the ministry. There was no shortage of people. If you don't give me this, you won't approve anything in Congress. There was no shortage. And we managed to win. In 2019, we did things that helped us not to be a disaster in terms of employment during the pandemic, such as the Economic Freedom Act. Let's talk about level, shall we? More humble. What is the Economic Freedom Act? For example, you wanted to sell hot dogs in your town, in the square, or you wanted to open a small pizzeria, a barber shop, a beauty salon. Your wife wanted a beauty salon. You apply for this license at the city hall. Yeah, this time. Here it would take months, even years. And the guy kept waiting. And the issue would not be resolved. The economic freedom law, when you file the business license, if the city hall does not give it to you within 30 days, you can open your business. I was here in Garua a while ago on my motorcycle. I stopped. I went to eat a pizza. The guy came, grabbed me, called me into the kitchen. Small pizzeria, right? Look, I owe this to your economic freedom law. What better satisfaction than that? Helping the people not to be harassed by some bad mayors.
You talked about the hand of God and so on. Religion, your religion, does it guide your government in some way?
Look, I'm Christian. I'm Catholic. My wife is evangelical. We have no problem with that. Our Bible is exactly the same.
It's quite similar, isn't it exactly?
No, she believes. She has enormous faith. Up until when she spoke at the convention, I confess, I didn't know she had this capacity to express herself. She spoke very well there, as she has. She started to go around with me, speaking very well, especially to the evangelical public. Like now, there in Recife, on 2 occasions in the March for Jesus, she spoke, okay? Now you will have a final point exactly like I will have mine. And if we don't bury it, the gold buzz will eat our carcass. Paulo Guedes is still talking about it today, right? Look, Paulo Guedes, huh? Our body is more than a collection of atoms.
Isn't it?
Or is it?
There are people who would say it is.
No, it's more than a collection. We are a collection of atoms.
We are.
We are exactly the same. Dada, what's the Lord done? And today, I started my talk at Febre Blanca by saying the following. Look, the richer and more powerful a man is, the more he thinks he is immortal. I started like this. We are all mortal. And in truth, what money can guarantee you a lot is a good crematory oven. Nothing more than that. People have to understand I'm not a preacher, I'm not a priest or a pastor, that we have an end point. And on the final point day, you will present your resume. Your resume is not the course you took.
If such a thing exists, President.
No, wait a minute. If anyone does not believe in God, I will not persecute them. I will not persecute those who do not believe in God. That is their right. And I believe. So on this day of judgment, what's your resume? What have you done here on earth? And what have you not done? You have to understand that one time a guy washed his hands and they killed Jesus. So omission, in my opinion, is also a sin. So much so that I always say it, right? I ask God for more than the wisdom that Solomon lost back then. I ask for strength to resist, which is tough. It's tough to resist this popcorn in this chair here. And courage to decide. Sooner or later, I'm going to have to decide certain things. I'm not going to go into detail with you. And it complies with the other biblical passage. You fear nothing, not even death, except eternal death. If I had slept there in Juistaphora, I wouldn't have felt anything. I woke up with my stretcher hitting the plane, looking at Dr. Macedo in my face. Who is that guy? Then I woke up again when the military police helicopter picked me up here at the airport and took me to the hospital. Then woke. If I had died, I didn't feel a thing. I didn't feel my death. No one's going to look for death here. What I asked God at that moment was not to leave my 7-year-old daughter, an orphan. That's all. Because just imagine, there are a lot of people here who lost their parents very early. They never even knew their father. The pain of knowing is almost like a blind person, a person who is blind. If she was born blind, she doesn't know what light is. Now, if they suddenly become blind at our age, how are you going to behave? Survive this whole life? So I believe in God, period. Because evangelicals, not all of them, but the vast majority agree with me. The other side says, let's put the pastors in their rightful places, the military too, the priests too. What proper place is this? The other side says abortion is a public health issue. Everyone has their own opinion about abortion. But Christians are against abortion. I've already said that the state is secular, but I'm a Christian. 90% of the population is Christian, period. Vote for someone else who thinks differently to achieve your goals. If Congress approves, I don't believe it will approve. Regarding abortion, I will veto. Nowadays, it's hard to get abortion approved in Congress. Let's assume it is approved. It will be tight. When I veto it, half of 513 are 257. You have to have 257 votes against the veto to make the law. Dado. Now, on the other hand, the Christian evangelical also knows. If the PT returns to power, it will put 2 supreme ministers in office next year. And it will put 2 abortionists there. There are examples where Barroso defends abortion, for example. And then they can approve abortion, which has become a judicial activity. The Supreme Court now does anything related to you. It approves abortion, just as the Supreme Court of Colombia approved abortion in your country too.
Personally, I am against abortion. I can't imagine a situation in which I would ask my wife to have an abortion. On the other hand, I'm also not in favor of a bureaucrat telling me what I'm going to do with my life.
No, but the issue is not bureaucratic. For you to live in society, you have to have laws.
Yes, there are.
You can do this, you can't do that.
But is this an essential law for society?
There are people who think it is essential. Argentina, for example, approved it. There was a party in Argentina. Argentina has everything. There is abortion. There is neutral language now. It has everything there. And I don't know why they started fleeing Argentina. Why is that? Economy.
My point is basically, I'm a little bit wary if governments are based on some religious literature, because they tend to be quite restrictive, you know? And I don't know. I think the state should interfere less in people's lives. For example, who am I going to marry?
But wait, you can live in a stable union with whoever you want. I'm not even going to talk about the Bible in the book of Romans. I'm not even going to talk about the Bible's Romans. But our Constitution says that the union is between a man and a woman. Present an amendment to modify what is in the Constitution, Article 200 and a bit. Present an amendment. Well, you can see, in 2010, a certain PLC 122. Bill of Law number 122 appeared, which passed in the chamber. And the person who gave it urgency to pass it in the chamber was the leader of the PFR at that time, who was a strong deputy from Rio de Janeiro. So what did the PLC say, among other things? The priest, the pastor, who refuses to perform any kind of wedding, as you say there, wedding gasto. 3 years in jail.
Well, I'm also against the state forcing a wedding.
No, but you can have a stable union for the rest of your life with your partner without any problem. No one interfered. Now, what the left wanted at that time, the PLC 122, was the priest who, enough two men, I want to get married. He says, no. 3 years of where? He says, it doesn't make sense.
I also think that doesn't make sense.
And then what happens? There was even a television program that... I went to discuss this subject, right? Who would have thought, right? I was there, man. Well, family home. Luciana Jimenez, right? That whole story, you know? So, let me make it very clear. Even when there was a couple there, 2 men, I asked, what a stupid question of mine. Who is the wife? Who is the husband? The guys shook hands. They are 2 men who love each other. I see this as their right, their choice. Go live. Go be happy. They said I was going to persecute gays. Did I persecute any gays here? Did I send any proposal to Congress? It's their right to interfere in that. You'll be happy. And whether he believes in God or not, that's up to him, man.
President, you are also aware that I imagine that many of the criticisms that reach you as racist, homophobic, and so on are due to the way you express your ideas. Because then you can come. If I'm rude, do I agree with you? I don't know if you're rude. Maybe. I don't know how you can speak clearly. Want to see? It's not well received, just like the punching bag.
It looks really bad. Or I went crazy. I lost my temper. I'm sorry. I can't do anything else. Words to the wind and arrows to the wind. There's no way back. You can say racist. My wife, he's from Cretus, Sierra. Racism. In 1978, you were a recruit. I don't know if you did exercise in Jerusalem.
No.
Well, in 78, there was a lake in Jerusalem that was about 2.5 meters deep. You did exercises there. Though I was there, my drums didn't go with me. Because I'm in the artillery, my drums do exercises. And there was a fake bayana, where the soldier would pass over the rope and his foot underneath. And there was Sergeant Ruban in the 21st Infantry Regiment. His pleasure was to knock the soldier into the lake. And then Celso Negan joined the false bayana. When I saw that it's going to be shit, I took off my harness, loosened my clothes. It didn't work. The Donegal fell into the water. I took off my clothes and jumped. The second time I dove, I caught the Celso at the bottom of the lake and dragged him out of the lake. I risked my life for the life of a soldier. He wasn't black, he was blue. What happened in the future? The army recognized my act of bravery and awarded me the Peacemaker Medal with palm. On average, 1 person per year receives this medal. So I have the medal for having pulled Celso Negan out of the lagoon, risking my life.
Do you realize that just the way you spoke, told that story, is enough reason for him to call you racist?
But wait, if I were racist, I would let Negan drown. Right? I drink water from the entire lagoon, damn it. Right. Isn't that right? Because look, I saved my first mother-in-law. Maybe you're watching me on Urds, Mrs. Aparecida. She was sinking there on Ufradi Beach, and I went after her. Look at the crime I committed by saving my mother-in-law. You've already offended the mother-in-laws of all Brazil, right? And Celso, who was with me a little while ago, Celso Negan, who lived behind the Palazzo Motel, there on Avenida Brazil in Dutra. He told me about it here. Look, even today, when I take a shower, I remember you.
Man, remembering you in the shower.
I don't want to tell the whole story, do I? No, because it's at night. Never mind. No, I won't tell you. Let's stop here.
But my point, President, is basically, I noticed that you even stopped making certain statements. You actually talk more to the guys in the playpen.
Yes, that's it. Controlled. There's no press there.
So, the way you put your ideas out into the world, They're one of the main sources of criticism, right? Your person.
I agree with you.
And you've been more careful with that too. Isn't that what Felipe told you to be more careful about? How did that happen?
No, everyone talks about it, right? People are annoying me, right? Sometimes I say, no one talks about it anymore just to annoy them. What's going on? There are a lot of people who prefer velvety lies to blunt truths.
Ah, it could be a velvety truth.
I don't have a velvety mouth. Okay.
How did you find out that you don't?
No one has ever talked about this about me. So yeah, it's just the way I am. I try to fix it, I think. What is it?
They annoy you until you get pissed off.
No, that's when I stopped accepting provocations. Yeah, for example, today. Today I was applauded at Feberband.man. A live broadcast was held at the end. There was a minute of applause. Almost everyone stood up and applauded Feberband, which signed that manifesto. Feberband likes Lula, doesn't it? Feberband knows whether it would profit more from Lula or from me. Pix went with me. Me. Some people didn't like it there. But it's not that much money for Feberband, more or less 20 billion less per year. After all, with Pix, 6 million new bank accounts were created which offset each other in the other area. I understand that Pix was excellent because it made everyone's life easier.
There's no way to say Pix. Pix really is excellent.
Even when my wife every day I leave the house, asks me for 2,000 Ri with Pix. Every day.
What for her to do?
I don't know. I've never given it. You already knew that, right?
No, Pedro.
So you took the bait there without meaning to. I saw that it was a joke. I learned that from Paulino Gogo.
Paulinho Gogo.
I also watch Matthias Sierra, right? That bit always, right? I have two routines, right? One is this one, on the throne. It's the best place to listen to Matthias Sierra or Paulino Gogo. 10 minutes to recharge the batteries. Another routine is very serious. After that, I go to my room, kneel down and say a prayer, and ask my good God that the Brazilian people not feel the pain of communism. That's it. It's nothing.
President now. Look, there's a sheet of paper here. Do you remember when I told you on the phone that I was going to have some thorny things here? You want to leave now, don't you?
No. What started? 7 o'clock? 7
o'clock. Done ya.
Wow, there's been 3 hours of idle chatter here, man.
Man, you talk a lot.
But, hey, you're a pain in the ass, huh?
For example, we even killed some people here. But hey, for example, you were just talking about Michelle who asks you for money every morning. Man, Queiroz put 89 bucks in her account there, right?
Yes, when that showed up, I immediately said that the check was for me. I immediately said, I've known Queiroz since 1985 in the police brigade.
1985, when I was born.
He was my soldier, a person I trust. He paid my bills.
So you lent him some money?
I lent it to him, it's common. He had complete freedom. He paid me by check in a certain... And I took it and put it in Michelle's account. I put it in her account. I regret having put it in my account because she suffered because of that.
Yes.
So the money was for me. Period out. Innocent or none.
It was 2.
Over the course of 10 years, that's it. To be divided into less than a